How's it going, everybody? And welcome to Ask Me Anything About Politics. My name is Jarrett, and I'm here to answer all your questions about politics, be they simple or complicated, be they left wing or right wing. Everybody is welcome here, whether you are a Republican, a Democrat, something in the middle, or something on the outskirts. I'm not here to judge you, I'm not here to roast you, and I'm not here to debate you. I am just here to answer all of your good faith questions about politics, regardless of what side of the aisle they present on. So go ahead and throw your questions in the chat and we will get to answering them. I know politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it. I know it can feel like trying to learn a new language. So this is the show where you can ask all your questions about politics and nobody's going to roast you or judge you or make you feel bad for not knowing things. I don't believe in making fun of people for trying to learn new things. So you're not going to see any of that here on this show. This is not a debate show, also. This is not one of those extremely popular live streaming shows where Democrats and Republicans yell at each other and call each other names and try to own each other, try to prove which one is smart and which one's dumb. This is not that show. This is just good faith answers to all of your good faith questions on the substance so that we can all have a shared understanding of what's going on in our world, what's going on in our government, what's being done with our tax dollars, because how can we solve the problems if we can't even agree on what's actually happening? So hopefully we can all get to a new shared understanding of what's going on in the world. There's a lot of misinformation and propaganda out there. So this is the show where you can ask your questions about what's actually going on, what's real, what's fake, what's AI, what's nonsense. So throw your questions in the chat. Fraser says, "What's up, mate? Any opinions on current UK politics?" My only hot take about UK politics is never vote reform, never vote restore, never vote for the Tories. Uh, do not vote for Nigel Farage. Vote for Count Binface instead. Somebody with no screen name and no profile picture says, "Was Francisco Franco good?" I don't know who Francisco Franco is. Robin says, "Is Trump good?" No, Trump is very much not good. Trump bad, as a matter of fact. Thanks for the questions so far, everybody. What is up, Willie? Great to see you again. Welcome to Ask Me Anything About Politics. My name is Jarrett, and I'm here to answer all your questions about politics, be they simple or complicated, be they left wing or right wing. So you can throw your questions in the chat, and we will get to answering them. Everybody is welcome here, whether you are a Republican, a Democrat, something in the middle, or something on the outskirts. I do not judge you based on your political beliefs. I am only here to answer all of your good faith questions. Uh, Bong Doodle says hello from Israel. Hello back. Lady Lisa, good to see you again. Aguero says, "What do you think about Sueta?" I don't know who that is. Luck Preda says, "Do you know anything about the Hungarian elections?" No, I do not. So sorry. There's a reason why I put the American flags here, why I call the show Ask Me Anything USA Politics. That's really um, my area of expertise. Bong Doodle says, "What do you think about sending us more money?" I'm against it. Thank you very much. All right, Willie says, "What are your thoughts on Spamberger reinstating voting rights for 66,000 people since taking office?" I don't know too much about that specifically. I will say that as a voting rights nerd, I would say that I am down with more people getting their right to vote back, especially people who have been through the justice system and have paid their debt to society. Like, yeah, man, let's get these people back in the process of voting. Traveling Hubby says, "Medical congressman is named Mike Hawk. Should I support him?" Sure, if you like him, or if you don't like him, then don't support him. Amelia says, "Opinion on abortion. I am pro-choice, but even if you are pro-life, you should still vote for Democratic politicians because Democratic policies actually decrease abortions and Republican policies don't. Republican policies increase accidental pregnancies and they make pregnancy much more dangerous for women." All right, Solomon Shamir says, "Are you ready for 2028?" No, that would be really bad. And Bong Doodle says, "Why anti-Semitic?" No, I do not believe it is the morally right thing for us to continue sending money and weapons to Israel because Netanyahu is a war criminal who is doing a genocide on the people of Palestine. So Bong Doodle then says, "Hamas will try doing another Holocaust on us. Then, thanks to the U.S., we can defend ourselves against the terror." First of all, Bong Doodle, I don't think that you need America's help anymore. You guys are doing fine without us. Second of all, we already have a law on the books here in America that says that we are not allowed to send money and weapons to to governments that are doing war crimes. And since Netanyahu is a war criminal, we are legally not allowed to send you guys any more money and weapons. Random says, opinion on abolishing taxes. I'm against it. Willie says, do you think we should keep it so convicted felons should have their voting rights stripped? No, not after they pay their debt to society, I don't think. B says, we're in a fertility crisis. Wouldn't pregnancy rates going up be a good thing? I don't know how valuable it is to kind of like artificially increase birthing rates by forcing women to have babies that they can't afford to have, forcing pregnant teens to have kids that they're not mature enough to take responsibility for. If we really want to do something about the fertility crisis in America, how about you just make our lives easier? How about you make it so that we can actually afford to have children? How about you teach children about sex education so that they can be prepared for the possible consequences of having sex? Okay, Ecuadorian, great to see you again. All right, Bong Doodle says legally can't send us money. That's neither here nor there, brother. Both you and I know that. No, I mean it's very important. It's important that you obey the law, I think. Okay. Beehart says, what party are you? Democrats. Man says, making things more affordable doesn't raise birth rates. Europe tried that, if anything. Poverty raises. I find that very hard to believe, Man. And since you often say things that I think are inaccurate, that tracks for me. All right, Jared Case says, why did Democrats vote no 14 times to reopen the government? So that's a really big question, Jared K. There have been a bunch of government shutdowns in the recent past. It is likely that the one that you are referring to is the one where Democrats refused to increase funding for ICE because they are doing barbaric, illegal shit to brown people in America. Jared K. Let me know if that's the one you're referring to. Brewery Man says, tell me one European country that actually raised its birth rate through social benefits. I can't. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist, though, and that doesn't mean that actually making people's lives better doesn't increase the birth rates. Loading List says, was it 6 million? I have no idea how many people were murdered during the Holocaust, but the Holocaust was a real thing. Caden says, do you think Charlie Kirk getting shot was an inside job? No. HMMY says, U.S. only invaded Iraq to take the oil. An argument could be made. Right. Solomon Shamir says, why Democrats support illegal immigrants? Democrats support people, and people that come to the country illegally are still people. So we should do what we can to take care of everybody, whether they are coming here legally or not. Bong Doodle says, may I ask, are you Jewish? I am kind of Jewish. My dad's Jewish. My mom wasn't. I wasn't raised Jewish. I did not have a bar mitzvah. J. Double the Dead said, should Trump have been executed after January 6th for treason? That seems a little drastic. I don't really support the death penalty. J. Dub of the Dead. So I'm not going to go for that, but I do think that he is guilty of treason, so he should be in jail for that. Official Allier says, hi, what do you think about England? I like England. Jared Case says, if ICE is being crazy, how did Biden deport more people? And why did Obama have kids in cages? So, Jared K., what you are doing, and I don't know if you're doing this on purpose or by accident, you are repeating inaccurate facts or cherry-picked facts in order to make it seem like what ICE is doing is normal or better than it used to be doing, but that is just not the case whatsoever. The Trump administration has given ICE a mandate to round up every brown person that they see and basically commit humanitarian crimes on them. They're putting them in torture prisons, detention facilities with no proper medical care. They are intentionally separating children from their parents and then losing the parents. Every people they've been rounding up, judges have found that like 90% of those detentions are illegal. The food that they're feeding them is maggot infested. So yeah, that didn't happen during either Obama or during Biden or Obama. So again, if you're doing it on purpose, then just leave because I know what you're doing and it's not going to work. If you are sincerely asking because you did not know the things that you were saying are inaccurate, then please stick around and we can continue getting into it. All right. Bong Doodle says supports illegal immigrants but doesn't want to support USA's number one ally in the Middle East. So Bong Doodle, I don't know if you're a real person or not. You definitely seem sus as hell. My question to you is: do you acknowledge that Netanyahu is a war criminal? Do you acknowledge that Israel is an apartheid state for the Palestinians? All right, Ace says, what do you think of Fox having to take the congressman off the air after calling Trump a PDF? I mean, that's par for the course for Fox News. They don't really care about reporting the news. They just care about hyping up right wing politics and making sure that Republicans get elected. All right, Platinum Soul, good to see you again. Says it belittles the hardship those who come legally through. Platinum, I would have a lot more respect for that perspective if the Republican Party was not making it impossible for people to come the right way. Like, there are millions of people who the Trump administration is attempting to cancel their legal residency, their green cards. They're trying to deport people who are trying to come here the right way. The Trump administration is not about getting rid of just the criminals or just the people who are illegally. This is a racist policy. It is born out of racism and is being enacted strictly based on racist principles. Now, if you want to actually have a discussion about like what's the right way and the wrong way to do immigration, like I'm down for that. But let's be clear about what we're actually talking about here. We're talking about atrocities being perpetuated on people who are citizens, people who are legal residents, people who have done exactly zero crimes. Some people whose only crime is having overstayed their welcome. Some people whose crime is that they're trying to come the right way and they just don't have enough money and they're just too brown. I'm seeing reports every single day of Trump voters who know people who are getting rounded up by ICE and tortured and are like, what the hell's going on here? I thought we were only doing criminals and the worst of the worst. Alrighty, let's see here. Bong Doodle says, I do not agree with BB, but he is doing what needs to be done for us to continue existing. That is inaccurate, Bong Doodle. He is making your lives harder. You're aware that Netanyahu has been funding Hamas through Qatar, right, Bong Doodle? Like Netanyahu is not helping. Why didn't he protect you guys on October 7th? That was a massive national security failure on his part. He is responsible for those deaths. He fucked up. All right. Let's see here. Messi says, will the European Union collapse? I hope not. KW says, do you like Donald Trump? No, I do not. All right. Jared K says, if they are rounding up every brown person, how are deportation numbers low? Irish deportations are up 50%. I don't know that deportation numbers are low, Jared K. Potentially it is because all of these detentions are not actually deporting people, but just putting them in torture camps in America. William Gold says, what is a woman? It's complicated. Any biologist will tell you that it is not as simple as who has peen or who has vag. Clean Fresh Edit says, who would win in 28 between Vance Rubio and AOC El Sayed? I'd go AOC. All right, Fabio says, hate us, Trump from IT. I don't know what that is. Nick says, what ideology do you align with? I am a progressive Democrat. This guy is just spamming the comments with Trump 2028, so that is an example of a comment that gets you blocked. Holy moly, my computer be going crazy now. All right. Hold on a second. Sorry, everybody. Bear with me. Okay, let's see here. Mouse says, what's the difference between socialist and communist? Socialist is when the state pays for things instead of you paying for things, so universal health care. Communist is when workers own the means of production, so any employee-owned company. Ace says, did Israel fuck up October 6th, or did he want it to happen so he can do worse things to Palestine? Ace, I think an argument could be made that Netanyahu allowed October 7th to happen so that he could stay out of jail. I think that is 100% possible. Solomon says, Trump is only putting America first. How can Americans not support their nation? Trump is not putting America first. Trump is putting Trump first. Always has, always will. Americans are getting absolutely fucked right now. Cost of living is going crazy. We are wasting $1 billion every day on a non-productive war in Iran. We are sending money and weapons to Israel when our own citizens can't afford to eat, can't afford to send their kids to college, can't afford a place to live, can't afford medical care. So yeah, no, Trump is not putting America first, not even a little bit. He's stealing Americans' money and putting it directly in his pockets. KW says, do Americans like Zohran Mamdani? Yes, most Americans like Zohran Mamdani. And the ones that don't are not watching accurate news programs. All right, Frank Jaramillo says, Trump versus 20 at Jubilee. Who are your top 10? There's no debating Trump because he's a liar and he's a bully. So it's like, If you're allowed to say whatever you want in a debate with zero fact checking, like anybody can win a debate. It's really easy. Okay, Samuel says, "What's your political stance?" I'm a progressive Democrat. Oliver says, "What's your opinion on squatters?" I think that we need squatters' rights so that landlords don't be shitty to their renters. But I do think that we need to recognize that sometimes people take advantage of those laws. Okay, let's see here. Levant 14 says, "You think the war in Iran would spread to a bigger regional war or just hits between the countries?" I have no idea, but it does kind of look like it is spreading to other countries in the region. Like Iran is striking all of America's allies in that region and hitting all and bases in a bunch of different countries. Like this thing is spiraling out of control because Donald Trump is so incompetent. William Gold says, "Do you think the UK is in a bad place?" I mean, anytime that right wing authoritarians like Nigel Farage end up polling well, and far right wing parties like Reform and Restore are polling well, then yeah, your country's not doing great. But that could just be because billionaires are flooding your information zones with a bunch of propaganda to make it seem like immigrants are the problem as opposed to billionaires. 2-4 Cower says, "When Dark Wader go to president of Ukraine?" Not answering that. Zach says, "What do you think? What's about to happen in Spain?" I don't know. Jared K says, "Is Biden's peak inflation still higher than Trump's current peak?" First of all, the inflation that happened during the Biden administration was Trump's fault. Second of all, I do not know if the Trump inflation is currently worse, but we're looking at stagflation right now, which is the worst, which is an even worse scenario than what happened during the Biden administration, which again was Trump's fault. All right, you're welcome, William. Toan says, "What do you think about the Vietnam War?" I'm against it. Jared K says, "According to DHS, 70% of detainees by ICE have criminal charges or convictions." Well, you can't really trust the Department of Homeland Security because it's being run by Trump sycophants right now. Literally everything that is coming out of the White House right now is sus. It's sus as hell. You can't trust the numbers they're giving you. You can't trust the information they're giving you. It is all sus as hell. Okay, the Smasher says Jared K is being misleading. 60 Irish people were deported in 24 and 99 and 25. Compare that to the tens of thousands of brown people deported in 2025. Thank you, the Smasher. I appreciate you with the fact checked. Bong Doodle says, "I think it's in America's best interest to destroy the Iranian nuclear program." Well, the Obama administration did that, and then Trump threw that in the garbage for no reason. Okay, Daniel says, "What do you think of the right wing wave in Latin America?" Right wing waves are bad no matter where they are. Jared K says, "Can't trust the primary source." What's the primary source for immigrants' numbers? I have no idea, Jared K. But again, the Trump administration has put a bunch of psychopaths and liars at every level of government. Ergo, any reporting that comes out of there is going to be suspect. There's a lot of reporting to suggest that the Pentagon's numbers about how many people have been injured and killed in the Iran war are inaccurate. So extrapolate from that. Extrapolate that if a bunch of psychopaths who decide to work for the Trump administration are going to go into these government agencies and they're prepared to lie to the American people, like recognize that that is not a reliable source anymore. Rav says, "Thoughts about China selling launchers to Iran?" I don't know anything about that. I don't even know if it's happening. Dad Who says, "Your last name sounds to be of Jewish descent. Do you come from a Jewish family?" My dad's Jewish. My mom was not. I was not bar mitzvah. I don't celebrate any religion. Okay, Wesley says, "Do you recognize the Trail of Tears as a G side?" That makes perfect sense to me. I'm not really an expert in what is or isn't a G side. I go based on what the experts say. I don't know what the experts say about the Trail of Tears, but it seems kind of G sidey to me. All right, Trident asks, "What do you think about the Rothschild family?" Don't know too much about it. Sounds kind of like an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. Oh, Carbine says, "Do you have Lindsay's phone number memorized as well?" No, I do not. All right, let's see here. Raphael says, "Bro, there's no right wing waves in Latin America. It's only soft right. I'm Brazilian. I know this well." Oh, perhaps you think that what is soft right is what is actually far right is actually soft right, but you cannot trust right wing parties. Take it from somebody who's living in America right now under a wannabe authoritarian who's trying to make ascendant the far right in America. Like nothing good happens when you elect far right politicians or even center right politicians. Okay, let's see here. Average Joe says, "I think these are bots. The Smasher's comment was copy paste from a blocked comment on Twitch." I mean, but the Smasher was supporting us. The Smasher was giving good information. Was he not? Let's see here. Solomon says, if illegals are given full autonomy and free reign in a nation, there will be law and order. Well, thankfully, nobody's suggesting that. Not Democrats, not Republicans, not anybody. Ace says, I don't know if you would know this, but why was our dollar connected to gold despite not having enough gold? I believe that the gold standard was initially set up as a hedge against inflation, meaning that if every dollar that exists was assigned to a certain amount of gold that America had, then you could not artificially or organically see a devaluation of that dollar because it was connected to the value of a rare element, I believe. Oh, ready. Cflon says thoughts on amnesty for all proposals. I don't know what you mean by proposals, Cflon. Right. Wiggerman says I don't know if that about politics, but why some races and religions get more rights. Normally, that happens when the people in power are the same race or have the same religion, and they want themselves to have more power. So that's usually how that happens. It's like, it's a shitty thing that people do. Where I think that if you're in power, regardless of what race or religion you are, you should make sure that everybody's being treated equally and not try to make your own race or religion ascendant. All right, Cflon says, okay, just amnesty for all then. Again, I don't know what you're referring to, my guy. Sebastian says, are you left or right? I am left. Ace says, do you know Jenny's number of 8675309? Of course. Ecuadorian, good to see you again. Becca says, I don't believe that at all. How hateful can you be saying something like that? Can you tell me more about what I said, Becca, that you think was inaccurate or hateful? Jody Stratton says, are you red or blue? I am blue. 2028 says, thoughts on AI on Snapchat being connected with the FBI. I have not heard anything about that. I'm not surprised at all to hear that intelligence agencies would be utilizing social media, or even more specifically using AI on social media. But yeah, that bit of information is news to me. Becca says, about religions, it's not all about power. Maybe somebody actually believes in God. So, Becca, I did not say that anybody's religion was bad or better than other religions. I literally said that you should be free to practice whatever religion you want. Somebody who's asking, why do certain countries give more rights and privileges to certain races and religions, Becca? So it sounds like you just did not understand what I was saying, because I was not saying that that people's faith was wrong, or that they shouldn't celebrate whatever their faith was. Becca says, but it's not about power. You said it was about power. I mean, if you were living in a country where if you're Muslim, you have more rights than if you're Christian, then what stands to reason is that the way that happened was the people in power were Muslim and they wanted more power for the people who practice their religion. The same thing happened in America with Christianity, where the people in power were Christian, so they made it so that you were not as good unless you were Christian. Becca, does that make sense to you? Let me know. Pony Tuner says, what do you think about the situation in the UK, and should the UK be for Christians only? No, the UK should have freedom of religion. Becca says, religion is a sacred thing, and that's between you and God, and decision should never be about. Becca, what are you trying to start a fight with me? I'm literally telling you that I am not saying the awful things that you think I'm saying. So you can either ask the question or you can leave. Wasibi says, what do you think about Trump and the Epstein files? I mean, it seems very much like the two of them were really good friends who spent a lot of time doing really shitty and illegal things together. Alrighty, Becca says, well, it kind of sounds like you were, but it's okay. Have a nice day. Well, I wasn't, Becca. So again, you can ask a question if you want, unless you want to just, yell at me for things I didn't say. All right, Sebastian says, do you agree with communism? I agree that workers should own the means of production. I agree in supporting unions. I agree that the lowest paid employees should have seats on the board of directors. I believe in raising the minimum wage, things like that. Martin says, the AI says this live is about chickens. Is it about chickens? No. Danny Williams says, what is a woman? It is complicated. Every biologist will tell you that. It is not as simple as who has a penis, who has a vagina. Alrighty, Martin, I'm going to block you if you keep this bit up. Fun with Lex, great to see you again. Says, thoughts on AI and which candidates are talking about that the most? I was actually just listening to people talk about that today on a podcast, and they were saying that not enough Democrats are are getting on the record about this technology that is potentially going to completely reshape humanity over the next 50 years or so, maybe earlier. I definitely trust Democrats on this issue more than Republicans for a couple of reasons. Number one, Republicans have a history of doing whatever massive corporations and the billionaires want them to do, regardless of how many people it hurts in the meantime. And number two, the Republicans are currently in charge. So if they were going to have a responsible policy concerning regulating AI, they would literally be fucking doing it right now. Instead, they're letting every AI company run completely fucking ramshot over small towns, polluting their fucking water and draining all their electricity for their data centers. It's fucking psychotic. I don't understand why people are allowing Republicans to keep their jobs. Oh, righty. Ace says, if you had to take three things from every different type of government system, what and why? Ace, I gotta be honest, I gotta punt on that question. Like I'm not so well versed in every country's political systems that I know what things are good and what things are bad. Bogos asks, how's the baby? Baby's doing great. Lex, did you know that I had a baby? Lex, I don't know if you saw on any of my recent live streams, but my baby's 3 months old right now. Lucas Leon says, are Israel and America involved with the overwhelming immigration of Moroccans into Spain? I do not believe that Israel and America are, what's the word I'm looking for? I do not believe that they are masterminding that. Is it possible that some knock-on effects of stupid wars that America and Israel are doing are causing that? It's possible. I have not connected those dots personally, but I'm open to an argument that that is the case. Danny Williams says, you don't even know what a woman is. I know that they cover their drinks when you're around. All right. Hazdog says, have you ever managed people or an organization or a company in your life? I have. Mercery says, what do you think of that former healthcare leader who used his Fifth Amendment 1,100 times about COVID? You're referring to Dr. Fauci. Dr. Fauci invoked his Fifth Amendment right because he's been used as a political scapegoat on the right for a very long time. The Republican Party is doing everything they can to make it seem as though Trump did not fuck up the COVID response. That the reason why there were 1 million Americans dead and over 100,000 more than probably needed to die is because of fuck ups by Donald Trump and his team, as opposed to Fauci hiding information or being really sneaky or whatever. Martin says, have Americans heard of Binface? We have, and we like him better than Nigel Farage. That's for darn sure. Mustafa says, if you were to choose political counselors, Tom Pearl or Chris Manchester, I don't know who those are. 2028 says, what African country would benefit USA the most to work with / build up? I have no idea. Official Aldier says, yo, I scrolled so far, I found you again. And what do you think about England's old prime minister resigning? I mean, are you talking about Keir Starmer? I think it was probably the right thing to do for him to resign. All right, Bogos says, how did Trump mess up the COVID response? Excellent question, Bogos. So the Obama administration had set up a rapid response team for potential novel viruses coming out of China, the wet market, things like that. They had systems in place to stop pandemics like this from happening. They had agencies within China, specifically in Wuhan, that their entire mandate was to stop dangerous new diseases from escaping. And when Trump got elected, the Obama team sat down with the new people and was like, all right, here's what you do if, for example, a novel virus comes out of the Wuhan region in China. The Trump administration looked at that plan and was like, cool, thanks for this information, and threw it right in the garbage. Then they defunded all of those organizations whose job it was to stop novel viruses from becoming pandemics. Then, when it started actually escaping from China, Trump administration said, first of all, they lied to everybody. They were like, don't worry, this is going away in a couple of weeks. It's going to be fine. And also, Trump was like, this is too hard of a problem for me. So it's up to the states. Every state every state for themselves. Just fucking go crazy, you guys. There's a documentary about this called, I can't remember the name of it. Anyways, they did a whole documentary about this. People within the government being like, yeah, the Trump administration was running around like chickens with their heads cut off. Like they had no fucking idea what to do, how to do it. They put Jared Kushner in charge. He's got no fucking experience. Yeah, it was a fucking shit show. And lots of people died because of Trump's incompetence. Okay. Ardilla says, did Fauci actually do anything bad? Yeah, I mean, I think that when you are in a novel experience where a new dangerous disease is spreading rapidly. You don't know anything about it. Mistakes are going to get made. I'm sure that mistakes were made by Dr. Fauci, but he is not, the head of a deep state cult the way that the right is trying to make it seem. George K says, who orchestrated the invasion in Kuwait? I don't know what that is. Rudy says, what is your take on Israel? I support the people. I do not support the government. Abdullah says, next president, Democrat or Republican, call it in 2026. Nobody knows who the next president is going to be. I would love for it to be a Democrat. I do not trust the Republican Party. I do not trust Republican politicians. They are currently asleep at the wheel. They are allowing atrocities and corruption to happen at unprecedented levels. Every single one of them deserves to lose their job, from fucking president to dog catcher. So let's all do the work of making that happen, because boy, oh boy, do they not they should not be allowed to continue after fuck ups of this level. Florent says, am I safe in Slovenia? I have no idea. Eminon says, science changes when you learn more about the subject. It's not lies, it's learning. I mean, if you're referring to Fauci, I agree. If you're referring to Trump, no, Trump was literally lying. Marisari says, do you think Texas will turn blue? I think it's possible that Tallarico wins the Senate seat, but whether that means that Texas in general starts voting more Democratic than Republican, that seems like to be a little bit of a stretch. Skites says, is the right wing actually uprising in Europe? So some people are saying that that is the case. This right wing swing in around the globe has been happening for a little while now. I am optimistic that people are starting to see through the bullshit, but where the billionaire class is operating all of our information channels and filling them with a bunch of misinformation and propaganda to try to convince people to vote for these far right politicians, anything is possible. So hopefully people can do the work of stopping this before it gets any worse. Alrighty, let's see here. Platinum Soul says, I tried my best to fill out the question. To be honest, I don't know a fourth type of government that doesn't fall under the others umbrella terms. I myself am a social democrat. Yeah. Average Joe says, is the TikTok side like this, but 100 times every day? I mean, yeah, we got a lot of things going on TikTok today, so I'm definitely not spending as much attention looking over at my Twitch and YouTube as I probably should. Spyux says, media is overwhelmingly left. What are you talking about? That is inaccurate. Spyux is. Lala says, what should we do to help people with disabilities aging out of their services and becoming homeless? Well, we should 100% fund those services. I don't understand. I don't know what services you age out of if you're disabled. That's obviously a really big issue. But yeah, I mean, we need to, if that is the thing that is happening, we need to change those laws to make sure that those people get the care that they need for the rest of their lives. Abdullah says, if the Republicans continue to rule after what is going under their control, then the states is cocked. I wouldn't say that America is ever fully cooked. I think that no matter how bad an authoritarian your country is, you can always get better. Things can always get better. So do the work. Do not believe the propaganda that is telling you that resistance is futile. Jeremiah says, are you a Democrat or Republican? I'm a Democrat. Somebody whose name I can't read says, will the U.S. immigration system change soon? No, not under the Republican Party. It's not going to happen anytime soon. Alrighty. James Witham says, do you think America is the best country in the world? And if not, where would you go if you could? I mean, I don't think that any country is better than any other country. I think that certain governments are better than other governments, but I think that if you truly believe that your country is better than every other country in the world, then I think you're weird. I think you're weird. Let's see here. But yeah, I would just love to be in a country that is not being ruled by far right psychopaths. Lovely Bunny says, why do you like politics? I don't like politics, Lovely Bunny. I pay attention to politics because I feel like it's important for every citizen to pay attention to politics. I talk about politics because I see the effect that propaganda and misinformation is having on the general public. And, because I'm an Aries and if I see a job that needs doing and nobody's doing it, I decide to do it myself. And so I come on here 5 days a week and I try to correct misinformation and make sure that people are recognizing that they are being lied to, and that the best way out of this is to work, is to do things, is to be involved and informed. And then if people are having issues with doing that, then they can always come in here and ask how to do it. All right, Spooks says far right psychopaths, as in avoiding what Europe is going through right now. Spooks says, so the things that you say are inaccurate. I will give you an opportunity to be better. You can either ask a question or you can leave. Emanon says, how were so many people fooled by Trump? Misinformation, propaganda, um, decades of Trump kind of like brainwashing a certain demographic in America that he's like this brilliant businessman when everybody's knows that he's been a con artist and a charlatan, ever since he arrived on the scene. Oh yeah, and some bigotry. Some people are just really shitty, and so they were like, "Oh great, a shitty person like me that I can vote for president. That's great." Muzz King, Smokes, and Mia, thank you so much for helping me reach my first gift goal of the day. Ivan says, "Does Europe need to change?" I don't know. Are there things about Europe that you think should change? James Witham says, "Do you think the Trump regime is a true representation of the Republicans?" No. No, the Trump has transformed the Republican Party into what he wants the Republican Party to be. And he's been relatively successful. Like they do have a couple of holdouts for sanity, but they get more and more of them get purged every single day. Dan, thank you so much for helping me reach my second gift goal of the day. Dan Blackroyd, the original goat. Okay, Siuxis says there's an African invasion going on today in Spain. You know, that's not a question, my guy. So you're out of here. Sorry, I warned you. Alrighty, where are we at here? All right. I Platinum says, "Am I going to get permabanned by the bot if I keep doing this?" I don't think so. I don't think that that's part of that thing. But yeah, just write your things shorter. The Robert Castro says, "I work for SSA. There's no aging out unless they are referring to the transition of disability to retirement." Well, that's good. But that person who asked the question did not specify which agency they're referring to specifically. So who knows what they were talking about? Sean and Pookie, thank you so much for helping me reach my final rose goal of the day. That means that it is time for finger hearts. It is finger hearts o'clock, everybody. The best part of the day. Toughest Jew says, "Why aren't you a libertarian phalangelist?" Because I don't know what that is. Rudy says, "Do you think the Ronald Reagan administration was the downfall of the USA?" I don't think that any one thing was the downfall of the USA, but I think Ronald Reagan did a lot to set up the current nightmare that we are living in. It's not entirely his doing, but he was instrumental. Fotis says, "Are you a Democrat or Republican?" I'm a Democrat. Squish Squash says, "Trump enabled Iran to go from 3% to 60% enrichment after tearing up the JCPOA. Now he gave up the Strait." That is 100% accurate, Squish Squash. Jose G says, "Did Alex get a BBL? I have no idea." Abdullah says, "Which Democrat has the best chance to win the presidency?" Nobody knows that. Zoro says, "Thoughts on Marxist theory?" I like workers under the means of production. Sounds good to me. Toughest Jew says, "Why don't you like feminism?" I do like feminism. I consider myself a feminist. James Witham says, "Do you think the Western world needs to have more involvement in fixing Africa / the Middle East?" So, short answer, no. Long answer, yes. But they have to do it in a way that is more about the sovereignty of those nations and less about extracting resources and installing people in power that we would like to be dealing with. It's about working with the people that are actually in those countries. Things like diplomacy and the soft power of American culture. Like that's how we should be trying to quote unquote fix nations that are, what do you call it? Failed states and regions that are being governed by warlords and things like that. Giant says, "Does Jews control USA?" No, Jews does not control USA. Bailey says, "Slightly unrelated, but why did the father of Colt Gray get 15 years to pray?" I don't know who that is. Dan Blackbird says, "Groucho Marx was overrated and Zeppo was quietly the secret weapon." Where the fuck did that come from, Dan? Turd Burglar says, "Did you see Lindsey Graham and Jake Sullivan discussing the Iran war? Seems like they both loved it." Yeah, warmongers be warmongering. No news there. All right, Giant says, "Now, does Jews control you?" No, Jews does not control me either. Giant, please stop saying Jews like that, Giant. Its reading is anti-Semitic. If you want to talk about Jewish people, I would not be opposed to that, depending, of course, on what follows. Mercery says, "Why did Trump break / ruin ties with so many countries?" So it's a big question. The answer is basically that Trump has a different worldview than the rules-based order that existed before Trump. Trump believes that might makes right and that every interaction with another country should be transactional. That there's no such thing that international politics is a zero-sum game. That America only wins if some other country loses. And so, ergo, he is doing what bullies do. He is throwing elbows. He is trying to enrich himself. It is way more important for him to establish himself as sort of like this god king trillionaire over America than actually make anybody's lives better either here or in other countries. So he believes it is more beneficial for him and this goal of his of becoming like the new god emperor of America to spit in the face of all of our allies and try to make allegiances with some of the worst authoritarians around the globe. Smokes Creek says, how long before Trump complains about the new Fed chair not lowering rates? I thought it had happened already. Giant says, okay, America first or Israel first? So definitely not Israel first, Giant. I would say America first, except I also believe in international aid. I believe that there are ways in which American dollars in other countries can be both the morally right thing to do and also the strategically right thing to do so that our lives can get better as well. Okay, let's see here. A lot of messages just being deleted by my moderator. Very pleased to see that. I'm sorry, Platinum. I'm really sorry. Use shorter words, my guy, or fewer words. Willie says, do you think the US should have hospital ships deliver aid to developing nations like China does? Oh, 100%. Like China is lapping us right now in many ways, and one of them is in international aid. Like it pays dividends when people in various countries, especially people that are struggling with poverty and disease, when they get help and they see on the label like this help delivered by the nation of blank, like that pays dividends for America's interests or China's interests. And right now, because the Trump administration is just solely focused on what makes him and his buddies as rich as humanly possible, they have left the field open for China to take over. And so all the shitty things that China is going to want to do in the future are going to be a lot easier because they are ingratiating themselves to all of these struggling peoples and nations. James Witham says, oh, so I agree with you. Playing devil's advocate, what if it's too much of a cultural divide? James, what if what is too much of a cultural divide? Let me know about that. Okay, Mercery says, are we spending too much money on the military? Yes, I believe that we should force the Pentagon to pass an audit. Mr. Mauserman says, is Israel our greatest ally? No, I would say that that's a toxic relationship and we need to break up. We need to drop them. That's you better than this, girl. You better than this. James, so this is on my previous question about the West fixing Middle East and African issues. Oh, okay, yeah. Is the cultural divide, if it's too much of a cultural divide, I think that's the work of statecraft, James. I think that what we do when you put professionals in those jobs, when you have people that are experts in the nations that they're going to be ambassadors to, we have a person who is literally trying to translate from one culture to the next so that there can be diplomacy and the culture of soft power, et cetera, et cetera. Nobody said it was easy, but the fact that they're not even doing it right now is the reason why there's so much turmoil in the world. GS, is fascism bad? Yes. Bunker Bomb says, you do know flags divide human beings, right? I mean, sometimes they do, or sometimes they let you know that a car won the race. Bunker Bomb. Fife Burnett says, do you think Trump is trying to take advantage of Christianity? Yes. He has successfully weaponized the people who follow the Christian faith into thinking that he is somehow better for them than other people. Mercery says, do you think McConnell's dead? I do. I don't have a lot of evidence, but it just makes sense that he would be. All right, let's see here. Platinum says, whereas in the West we are selfish, we had to enforce a 3 feet rule and stuff. That seems like the end of a longer conversation. GR says, what do you think about National Socialism? Well, since that was the name of Hitler's party, I'm against it. Brad says, LMAO, so socialism is good. Are you for real? I mean, when the government does things, sometimes it's good, Brad. Like, I believe in universal health care. That's socialism, isn't it, Brad? Don't you think so? James Witham says, what do you think happened to Blanche? She supposedly used to be a passionately good lawyer. I mean, I don't know. Corruption, Fox News, the internet. Sometimes when you get aged, you lose your noodle. Okay. Jebediah Kerman says, what do you think about illegal immigration from North Africa into Europe? Immigrants are a net positive no matter where they go. So, regardless of where you live, it is better for you to be chill about immigration because people that are coming into your country are only going to benefit you. Additionally, we don't know what the next 50 years are going to look like. We don't know because of climate change what places are going to be livable and which ones aren't. So, it behooves all of us to be chill as fuck about immigrants because there, but for the grace of God, go I. It is likely that most of us are going to have to move at some point in the near future. Wild Botswana says U.S. politics is full of corruption. I'm from the EU and amazed what your country has turned into. Yeah, it is almost exclusively the fault of the Republican Party. Toughest Jew says, did you believe the anti-China propaganda? Is there a specific thing that I said that makes you think that I am buying anti-China propaganda? I'm not against China. I'm against Xi Jinping. I don't believe in dictatorships. I don't think that you should send people into a gulag just because they're a religion that you don't like they're like the Uyghurs. I don't think that you should throw people in a gulag for mentioning Tiananmen Square, the way that Xi Jinping. I don't think that you should declare yourself president for life the way that Xi Jinping did. Brad says socialism is the ability to say it's free while reaching into your pocket to take more. Brad, it does not seem like you are here in good faith. It sounds like you are here just to present your perspective. So you either ask a question or leave because the things that you are saying are inaccurate. Lost Convict says, do you think immigrants should be vetted? Yeah, sure. Why not? I got no problem with that. Okay. John Bradley says, they also disappear the homeless. I have not seen that reporting, John Bradley, but I wouldn't put it past him. Lily says, should I leave the U.S. permanently? That is a question that I cannot answer for you. That is entirely has to do with your life situation. James Witham says, how clued up are you on UK politics? The only thing I know about UK politics is do not vote for Nigel Farage. That you should vote for Count Binface over Nigel Farage. Do not vote Reform. Do not vote Restore. Do not vote for the Tories. Right-wing parties are toxic. Okay, Katniss says, the algorithm brought me here. Well, then thank God for the algorithm, right? LMAO says, Brad says, you are open-minded. That is funny. Congratulations, Brad. That is not a question, so you're out of here. Casper says, Trump is not a bad president. Source Fox News. Of course, Fox News would say that, Casper. You're doing a bit, right, Casper? Like that's you're being funny, right? D, please stop scamming the comments, spamming the comments. D, but yes, I can explain fascism. There's two definitions of fascism. There's the kind of like philosophical definition of fascism, where it means like everything for the state, meaning if the government tells you that the thing that's best for the country is for you to murder your whole family, then you do it. That is kind of like the philosophical definition of fascism. There are more sort of like logistical specifics that fascist dictators and fascist regimes have done in the past that are helpful in sort of like figuring out if your leaders are fascist or attempting to be fascist. And those things include a lot of things that the Trump administration has done. Consolidating power, firing everybody who isn't a total party loyalist, attacking institutions of higher learning, attacking the media, attacking culture, massive corruption and self-dealing. It's demagoguing, scapegoating marginalized groups. For Hitler, it was the Jews. For Trump, it's immigrants. Alrighty, let's see here. Okay, Baraka, I don't know about Quetta. Squishquash says, why is the U.S. taking 10% stake in Intel not considered socialist? Because Trump is doing it. And so, according to the rules of the billionaire class and the Republican Party, Trump can do whatever he wants. And if you have a D next to your name, everything that you do and say is wrong. Mercery says, why did Epstein get so many light sentences? Corruption, and connections. Mercery. Mr. Mauserman says, what do you think of Max Warburg? I don't know what that is. Let's see here. D says, thank you so much, dude. I finally understand you helped my schoolwork. Oh, you're welcome, D. Right. James Withen says, "Do you think the World Cup has shown the U.S. the joys of its international counterparts?" I mean, I don't know. I don't think that the people who I don't think the people who watch the World Cup are the ones that we needed to convince that other nations have good things in them too. I do think that it was probably good for other nations remembering that there are good people in America, and that just because America is currently being run by a bunch of psychotic wannabe fascist dictators, that this doesn't mean that our country is trash and that all the people in it are trash. Okay, Matt says, "What are your thoughts on legislation limiting the infinite growth of Mag 7?" I don't know what Mag 7 is. Jesus says, "What do you think about the invasion that took place in Kuwait?" I don't know. Straight out of Stray says, "All about manipulating the young every 4 years, generation after generation after generation." I'm not really sure what you are referring to. Gary is spamming with support for a third Trump term. That's a block. Misty Lane, good to see you again. Apparently, foreigners really loved our shitty fast food. I mean, there's joy there, Misty Lane, and I do not yuck other people's yum. I celebrate joy wherever I see it. Cuba says, "Who should be on the Democratic Party ticket for 2028? Whoever the people vote for in the primary." Cuba. Mr. Mauser says Max Warburg was a German banker who funded the Bolsheviks. The Kalergi plan is white replacement. Oh well, I don't know, white replacement, like replacing white people. Yeah, it sounds a little sus to me, in my opinion. All right, Wiggerman says, "It's me again. I want to ask about you, religious or atheist?" I am neither. I believe that it is wrong to be 100% confident that there is no God, the same way I think it's wrong to be 100% confident that there is a God. I think that we all need to recognize the things that we do and do not know. You're allowed to have faith, you're allowed to have your beliefs, but to legislate based on your confidence that your religion is true is not the right way to run a store. John Bradley says, "Is there anything you disagree with of the DSA platform, or is it the successor of the DNC?" I think that some of the rhetoric coming out of the DSA can be a little hyperbolic. I think it can be I think it has its heart in the right place a lot of times, but it's not meeting the American public where they currently are. A lot of these DSA candidates who are winning their primary elections are being asked, like, do you still believe in things like defund the police? Do you still believe in abolishing prisons? And a lot of Americans are not on board with that. Even if the kind of like theoretical, pie in the sky foundation of that idea is coming from a good place and what we all should be striving for. America is not trying to vote for you if that is something that they believe you are going to do. So I think DSH could be a little bit smarter about that. I think they could be a little bit less hostile to the DNC establishment. Obviously, the establishment can sometimes be really hostile to the DSA, but I don't think that you are doing yourselves any favors if you try to fight fire with fire in that way. I think that if you are a progressive who loves the DSA and a centrist wins the primary, then you need to go support that centrist. If you are a centrist and a DSA backed candidate wins the primary, then you need to go support that DSA candidate. Like the entire point of the Democratic Party is we are a big tent. So we have people like Chuck Schumer and we have people like Bernie Sanders and we have people like Hakeem Jeffries and we have people like AOC. And anybody who's trying to tell you that the other side is bad or your enemy or that you shouldn't vote because the other side of the coin won the primary and that's a big slap in the face to you and they fucking suck and they hate your wing, like that's all bullshit. That is all propaganda trying to divide and conquer, trying to get us fighting amongst ourselves, trying to convince you to not vote and to not use your political power. Alrighty, let's see here. James Witham says, "Surely Trump can't break the separation between state and church, right? It's constitutional." I mean, there's no real enforceable mechanism there, unfortunately. If the Supreme Court and the Republican controlled Congress decide to allow Trump to essentially act as though the separation from church and state doesn't exist, then that's what happens. Like a lot of what makes America America is currently being ignored by Trump and the Republican Congress and the right-wing billionaire captured Supreme Court. So anything is possible if you allow those people to be in charge of everything. The Toad says, do you think we live in a democracy? We do live in a democracy. The Toad, would you like some evidence? Hefele says, opinion on Pedro Sanchez. Don't know who that is. Cuba says, do you think that the USA at the moment needs a president like Obama or like FDR? I mean, I thought those are both great presidents. So, yeah, I think that's the president is a very powerful position. But what I think we need more than just one Democratic president is a massive rejection of the Republican Party politicians. I don't care if individual citizens in America want to align themselves with the Republican Party, but no Republican politician should be able to keep their job or get elected after what the Republican Party has been doing over the last 10, 20 years. Like it is pretty psychotic, and that is the biggest issue. The biggest issue is that not enough people see that as being the biggest issue. Not enough people see Republican politicians for being the criminals that they are. All right. The Toad says, what is democracy? Democracy is where the people vote for the things. James Witham says, do you think the collegiate voting system is flawed? Yes, 100%. Hitchum says, what do you think about what happened in Spain and Morocco? I not know what you were referring to. Emperor Silly says, what if we stopped using first past the post voting? I think that'd probably be a good system, Emperor. John Bradley says, do you think the silent Democrats should be in the same boat? The silent Democrats? What are you referring to there, John Bradley? All right, everybody, we are almost at an hour, so get your final questions in. Thank you for all the support. The Toad says, you're a Democrat, aren't you? I am a Democrat, the Toad. Sophia, great to see you again, says, how can Trump be a fascist when he was elected into office? I'm just kind of confused how he's a dictator. Excellent question, Sophia, and great to see you again. It's been a minute. So being elected is often how dictators and authoritarians get into office. Hitler was elected. So does that mean that he was not a fascist dictator who did all the bad things that he did? Sophia, what makes you a fascist is a list of like 12 things that every fascist dictator does. And the list includes a bunch of things that you probably have seen Trump do. Attacking the media, attacking the news, attacking institutions of higher learning like colleges, consolidating power, firing anybody who isn't a full Trump loyalist, corruption, self-dealing, scapegoating marginalized communities. For Hitler, it was Jewish people. For Trump, it's immigrants. So yeah, let me know if that clears things up for you, Sophia. Good to see you again. All right. The Toad says, so Joe Biden did nothing corrupt? Yes, the Toad. It is 100% accurate to say that Joe Biden did nothing corrupt. Do you want to know how I know that, the Toad? Do me a favor, the Toad, and ask me how I know that. Ask me how I know that Joe Biden did absolutely zero corrupt things. The Toad. I cannot wait for you to ask me this question. It's literally, I'm literally not even going on to another question because I want you to ask me that question so badly. SLT says, didn't Hitler start with the communists and the socialists? That I do not know. Are you referring to that poem, though? The first they came for the blanks thing? Sophie says, talk about Spain's immigration. No, I don't know anything about it. James Withen says, do you think presidential pardons should be legally allowed? No, I believe that too many presidents have abused the pardon power. I think that it has lost its usefulness. James says, who do you think would be the Democrats' best candidate to put forward for the next election? I have no idea. Nobody does. There are people that I like a lot, but also I think that we should really be focusing on the midterms in 2026. Yeah, Todd is not asking me how I know that Biden has done. The Toad is not asking me the question. The Toad, where are you, the Toad? Where are you, my guy? I'm here to answer your questions, my man. What's going on? I gave you so much space. I gave so much room for you to follow up with me on this. No, you didn't. I was looking. Because he was a potato while he was president and ran nothing. So that's not, you didn't ask me, the Toad. You didn't ask me the question that I wanted you to ask. You answered your own question. Oh my God. Oh, man. Sometimes the obviousness of the sus is very enjoyable for me. But let me answer James Witham. How do I know that Biden wasn't corrupt? I'll tell you why. Because in 2022, the Republican Party took over the House of Representatives. The Democrats added seats in the Senate, but the Republicans were able to take over the House of Representatives. And while they were in charge of the House of Representatives, they did a whole bunch of investigations into Joe Biden and into Hunter Biden. And they found fucking nothing. A big old goose egg. They had every single opportunity to find something that Joe Biden had done that was corrupt, or to connect Hunter Biden's shenanigans to his father's political power, and they found fucking a bubkiss. So either Joe Biden was innocent of corruption and he was not at all connected to the money that Hunter Biden made, or Republicans are incompetent and they are really, really bad at doing investigations and really, really bad at doing their job. In which case, again, they should all lose their jobs. Alrighty, everybody. I'm going to get out of here. Thank you very much again for all of your support. Hold on a second. Sophia got back to me. That does make sense, but it's just that he can be replaced in future elections, unlike most dictators. So, Sophia, are you aware of all of the ways in which Donald Trump, in both his first and second term, is trying to make it so that he cannot be replaced in future elections? Let me know. Let me know if that's something that has passed your radar, Sophia. If you want to support the show because you think what I'm doing is good, there's a lot of things that you can do to give me that kind of support. You can send gifts on TikTok. You can be a fan on TikTok. It's free to be a fan on TikTok. You can be a super fan on TikTok. That's a subscription. So if you want to support me financially, you can do it that way. You can send bits on Twitch. You can be a subscriber on Twitch. If you have Amazon Prime, you can subscribe to my Twitch for free. Costs you $0, helps me out a ton. We'd really appreciate that. What else? You can join my Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Those are very fun incentive at $10 a month if you have that kind of money and you want to support me like that. But also, I appreciate the free support that you can give me, just liking and sharing and telling your friends how great my live stream is. That helps me out as well. So again, any support you guys want to give me, I very, very much appreciate. It is your support that allows me to continue doing the show, that allows me to justify continuing to spend an hour every weekday getting into the business of politics with all of you guys. If there are any questions that I was not able to get to on this live stream, please do not be shy about reaching out. I want to be a resource for you to be more informed and more involved in politics. So you can DM me, you can email me through my website, link is in the bio, or you can hit me up on my Discord server. Link is in the bio. Waiting on Sophia to respond to my last comment. And yeah, if you guys are like me and you see what's going on in the world and you're like, what the fuck do we do about this? The thing that you do about it is you do something about it. Like, we are the only way that we're getting out of this. The billionaire class has a lot of power and they all have a lot of resources. And so they are doing whatever they can to dismantle democracy, to make all of our lives fucking nightmares. The only way that we can fight them is if each of us does the work, because there's a lot more of us than there are of them. So long as we do the work, then we win. When we fight, we win. And the more people that do the work, the less work there is for everybody else to do, which is really nice. Ole Kim, thank you so much for becoming a Prime subscriber on my Twitch channel. Very much appreciate that. The Toad says you can become a billionaire, you know? Yeah, but I don't like exploiting workers. I don't like stomping on people's necks. Sophia says, I disagree with the whole Trump 28 thing, but can't the Constitution prevent it, unlike dictators? So, Sophia, that is not even the tip of the iceberg, Sophia. Like, he's done so many more things to try to dismantle democracy, to try to make it so that he cannot be replaced or Republicans cannot be replaced. And I'm happy to go into more detail with you on that, Sophia, but I got to wrap things up. So thank you again for being here, everybody. Do the work. That's the only way we get out of this. Uh, so one of my moderators beat me to it. Do the work. That's the only way we get out of this. Be good to each other. You don't have to be a dick to do the work. Be good to yourselves. Self-care is part of the work. So if you've been doing the work and you want to enjoy yourselves a nice weekend now that it's a Friday, go ahead and enjoy your weekend. You know, I am certainly going to be enjoying my weekends. I'm going to go to my favorite gym tomorrow. Very, very excited about that. And yeah, regular streaming schedule is Monday through Friday, starting around 11:30 a.m. So I will see you guys next time on Monday. Same bat time, same bat channel. Who wants to say hi to my baby? Everybody, my baby's here. Yay! Look at how cute she is. Hey, cutie pie. All right, goodbye, everybody. Bye. 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 Bye.